everybody. Welcome to the morning show. We're coming to you today on WJOP-LP Newburyport and FM 96.3 on Channel 9 and on Newburyport Community Media's YouTube station at ncmhub.org. I'm your host, Mary Jacobsen, and today I'm delighted to welcome Steven Stroum here. He's here to talk about his memoir, Success and Self-Discovery, a business memoir with insightful tips and personal development advice that will help any entrepreneur. Steve is a native of Auburndale, Mass. He's a U.S. Air Force veteran, a graduate of Northeastern. His business resume is long and varied, including jobs as a product publicist, a marketer, and an entrepreneur, including founding the Venmark Corporation. Steve, welcome to the morning show, and thank you so much for taking time
Mary,
to visit us.
Great to be with you.
It's great
I've been
to
looking
have
forward
you
to
here. Well, I've been very much looking forward to meeting you and talking to you about your memoir and your life as an entrepreneur. Your book is a memoir, in fact, of your life as an entrepreneur, the ups and downs, the challenges and rewards. And you know, Steve, I think many people dream of having their own business. I think people are drawn to the idea of being free, of being your own boss, and of the possibilities for creativity. You pay homage to entrepreneurship in your book, not just in your own life, but in general. And I wonder if you could start us off by speaking to what you admire and see as a vital contribution that entrepreneurs make to business and also to our society at large.
Okay. Entrepreneurs are really the backbone of our country. 99.9% of all companies are small companies and small business.
Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs are the real American heroes because they employ most people in this country. But just think of three entrepreneurs' impact in our lives. Jeff Bezos with Amazon.com started out of a garage, and look at the impact on our lives. Steve Jobs with Apple Computer.
Right.
Nobody lives today without an iPhone.
There was a garage involved in that origin story too, I think.
Yeah, exactly. He and Steve Wozniak. And Bill Gates, of course.
Yeah.
So these are just three individuals who started from nothing and changed our lives. That's the essence of entrepreneurship to me. Plus philanthropy and investment. I just read in the Wall Street Journal where Amazon has devoted $1 billion to investment in innovation and applied intelligence and artificial intelligence and that sort of thing. And Gates, of course, has conquered disease around the world with his foundation. And so philanthropy is a huge part of what entrepreneurs do. And a lot of people don't know how much they give back. But that's really what it's all about. And on a local level, of course, I dealt with small companies here in Newburyport for 30-odd years. They employed a lot of people, gave people a lot of opportunities, gave back to the community with raffles and fundraising and that sort of thing. So, and it's freedom. It's what the United States is all about. One of the things that motivated me years ago was this report. This is entitled The Future of Small Business in America. And this was from 1978, and they were concerned about small business because in those days, small business created 92% of all new jobs.
Wow.
Today, that's down to 64%.
Wow.
And that's a problem because it's a reflection of freedom. So to me, small business is the canary in the coal mine.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I think right now there's an attempt at a rise in entrepreneurship because of, I think in part because of COVID. People don't like to be told what to do in America.
It's true.
So at any rate, so that's really what one of the key factors. A lot of factors in the book involve how to start a business, how I tell a story of how I got started because it's not linear. I didn't set out to start my own business. I didn't set out to write this book, but it's a human look at what's associated with starting your own business and how to create an environment where you can win and do that sort of thing. So,
and ultimately have a huge impact, both in terms of developing a corporation that makes a business contribution, but also, as you point out, there's a philanthropic side to successful entrepreneurs as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's, you mentioned your three examples, and I think it's easy to forget that a corporation that has grown as huge and seems so indomitable and almost like a permanent fixture of our landscape as Apple or Amazon or Microsoft, it's easy to forget, I think, and thank you for reminding us, that it started with an individual who had an idea and a passion.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great example is Home Depot. Started by a couple of fellows, and Langone helped finance it. And he has funded New York University Medical School.
Interesting.
So students
I did not know
now,
that.
they can go to NYU Medical School free of charge because of Ken Langone. And he became very wealthy as a result of working with Home Depot. So, and Salesforce.com is Mark Benioff. He and his wife have given, I think, $600-700 million away.
Yeah.
I mean, these are wonderful contributions. Again, Paul Newman, the actor, created a company that's given away millions, I think billions by this point in time.
Yeah, probably.
So that's a big, and every entrepreneur I've ever spoken to that gives money away tells me that they get more joy out of giving than earning.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's a wonderful, entrepreneurship is a wonderful place to be. So again, coming back to my book, it's dedicated to trying to influence people to go that route. I mean, as a blue-collar kid, I mean, I only dreamt of being an entrepreneur. And I can remember I got suckered into buying this big, thick, orange, oversized paperback book for $15, which was like $100 today.
Yeah.
100 small businesses you can build on your own, and I bought it, and it was junk.
Oh.
Because again, it was something I needed and I wanted to get into, but you have to learn how to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully my book will help some people learn how to do it, and also inspire them.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Any small business, a lot of people go into small business, they don't appreciate the fact that nothing happens until a sale is made. So, I mean, I remember I have a photographer that's been with me for 25 years. When he and I first met, he was contemplating going to work for somebody else and starting his own photography. He didn't know what he wanted to do. I said, well, you need to make certain that you understand that you're a businessman first, providing photography services.
Right.
In other words, nothing starts, you don't get to take a picture until you made a sale.
Right.
So that's so I give very succinct information on how to create a sales presentation, what to say, how to set up an appointment, how to manage your territory, how to manage your time, and so forth, and also get involved with decision making. And I share my bad ones along with the good ones. So.
Yeah, there's a ton of pragmatic how-to business advice in your book, but there's also a lot of personal advice. One of the things that you emphasize in your memoir, and the key to the story of your own growth that you tell in your memoir, is the importance of knowing yourself deeply, fully, and truly. For someone considering launching their own enterprise, and again, you said Americans don't like to be told what to do. I think that's why the dream of starting your own business is so common and so popular here. So what do you see, Steve, in your experience, as the personal qualities, the values, and the habits that would make somebody a good fit for life as an entrepreneur?
Okay. Well, I have an uncle who was an entrepreneur, did quite well. He used to say, you need to have a fire in the belly.
Okay.
Okay. But I have a list of 7. My mind isn't too good at remembering lists, so I'll read this to you. The first, there's 7. I wrote 7 things that I think are necessary must have character traits to be an entrepreneur. I think number 1, you have to have empathy and a genuine desire to help other people, because people can tell. And personal accountability and discipline. The beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is personal responsibility. You can't, once you do it, you can't blame somebody else for something that goes wrong. I can't say that sales manager did that. I hired that sales manager. I must have missed something, Know thyself and trust your instincts. Every time I didn't trust my instinct, it was a mistake. So finally, it's at this point in my life, I'm trusting my instincts a lot more.
Yeah.
You have to have curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. You have to have a drive to succeed and persuasive ability. I talked about salesmanship, but persuasive ability comes with your enthusiasm for what you're doing. If you're passionate about something, you'll be enthusiastic, and people can pick up that vibe. You have to have a drive to succeed, as I mentioned, belief in your product, service, or mission, whatever that might be, and a positive attitude, tenacity, and integrity. So I believe you got to have those 7 characteristics to really be successful as an entrepreneur.
That's a great list, and I think some of the things might surprise people. Like you led with desire to help people, to lead with, a mission, something meaningful,
sure.
empathy. And I think some people might be surprised that that is up at the top of your list.
Well, if I'm in a service business, I perform publicity services for other companies to help them promote their products.
Yeah.
What I'm most proud of is today I'm working with clients I've had for over 45 years.
That's impressive, Steve.
Okay. And so that's happened because I understand, they know I care about what I'm doing. If I make a mistake, I fix it. I don't oversell. And that's the other thing about entrepreneurship. You control the expectation of your customer or your client, so always deliver a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you'll have a good long-term relationship. So that type of behavior is important to me.
And authenticity is the word that stands out to me from the list you read, that if you don't have authenticity, people can tell, and if you do have authenticity, it goes a long way toward helping you succeed at all the other qualities, because people can read that authenticity.
That's what it's all about.
Trust is built on authenticity.
Absolutely.
So.
There's long been a term in sales that expression that people judge rationally but buy emotionally.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Because in other words, especially today where things are so complex,
yes.
and you go to buy a new computer system, what's your decision really comes down to? It's this person knows what he or she is talking about. I trust them.
Yeah.
But it's the I trust them that makes the difference in terms of whether or not you make that purchase.
Absolutely.
I think of it, I've explained it to people in terms of you go into a clothing store and you know exactly what you want. You want to pick up a couple of neckties or this or socks or whatever. Salesman comes over and bombards you and chases you around like a puppy dog. You leave.
Absolutely. It feels like a boundary violation.
Exactly.
You feel rushed. It's like, no, this is unpleasant. I'm leaving. Yeah. So. Well, that's a wonderful and very insightful list about what can help people figure out whether they're a good fit for life as an entrepreneur. But in tandem with that, Steve, then what are some of the qualities, habits, or values that might indicate to somebody that they'd be more effective and happier working within an existing organization?
I think, one of the things would be teamwork. If they like being part of a team, they like rules, following rules. Rules are very comfortable, and being evaluated by somebody and constantly being told, "Geez, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong." So that need for structure, I think. I think one of the things that entrepreneurs get accustomed to is something's going to come up every day that's a little bit different, and you have to be able to think on your feet, and you have to be able to adapt and deal with volatility. I remember having a number of payroll was due on Friday. I had a number of Thursdays where I said, "Oh my goodness, I got to figure out a way to come up with a few $1,000 to cover payroll." You don't have those issues when you're in a corporation.
Right.
You build alliances, you have a team, you play a different game.
Yeah, it's a different skill set.
It's a different skill set.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And some people will prefer that and thrive under those, especially if they're not comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah.
And
I didn't deal well with it,
Yeah.
I had corporate jobs and excelled, and they never moved fast enough for me. And I think that's also a characteristic of an entrepreneur is you need to do it for yourself.
I think also, and this is speaking on my personal experience, because I had my own private practice for years and years, and left a group practice because I just hate meetings. It's just a thing.
I understand.
And so I think if you're going to work, especially for a large organization, as part of a, an organizational setting, you need to, I think, not just tolerate meetings. I think you have to kind of you have to find them productive, which I just never did. So.
Well, accurate because oftentimes they're not.
Yeah, it's true.
I would say more often than not.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur.
You know.
Well,
But
you know,
interesting you mentioned meetings. I did something different for years. I had my sales meetings on a Monday night. And, you know, it was able to set the tone for the entire week. And if I had to choose somebody out for whatever reason, you know, it would be resolved, and Tuesday morning they would go out in the field and it would work, and they'd have a great week. Other companies do it on a Friday afternoon because it's not for the person's benefit, it's for the company's benefit.
Oh, okay.
Friday afternoon, it's not going to be that productive. Let's get them in the office, you know, we'll have a beer and so forth.
Yeah.
But if there's something negative that transpires during that sales meeting, and if you're a good sales manager, you can have some transparency. Somebody's going to stew over it for the entire weekend.
Yes, you're right.
And they're going to come in Monday and they're going to do a terrible job.
Yeah.
So when we had our meetings on a Monday night, it was rah, 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 Tuesday, Wednesday. It just made things happen.
Yeah.
It was much more logical.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It is more
that's
logical.
Those are the kinds of tips that I have in my book.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense.
You know.
Because people's emotions affect their productivity.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely, and consistent with that, what I did in the early days in particular is I kept a journal. And every day I would put a notation, time of day, how I was feeling, what was transpiring. And then over time I could look back at that and say, geez, you know, I was really most creative and the strongest between 5 and 7 in the evening.
interesting.
And, you know, these kinds of behaviors, you know, made me most productive.
Yeah.
So it's really knowledge. And a lot of people who don't understand owning your own business don't understand the preparation that's associated with it.
Yeah.
You know, our beloved Tom Brady, you know, he played football for an hour on Sunday, but I think he put in over 100 hours during the week preparing for that game.
No doubt.
Okay?
Yeah.
So why not approach business and life the same way? How many people do that?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that I touch in the book that gives people answers as to, geez, how do I get started? How do I begin? What do I think about?
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned, for example, and this is helpful to people, if you want to get into business for yourself and you have no idea what you want to do, what are your hobbies? What do you like?
Yeah.
If you're a hiker, well, there's a lot of things associated with hiking.
Right.
There are now watches that do your stepping. There's apps now, but there are boots, there are clothing, and there are people that manufacture it, people that distribute it, people that sell it on retail, wholesale. So all these places are opportunities for you to get involved in that world. And if that's the world you enjoy being in every day, why not spend your life talking to people? You know,
Absolutely.
if I were to start a business today, I would probably be involved with fishing. I love to fish.
Okay.
You know?
And there's lots of ancillary
Yeah, absolutely. There are people
businesses.
that manufacture
Right.
lures, they manufacture fishing rods, they manufacture boats, they run marinas. I mean, there are just so many things
That's right.
that you can spend your time talking and doing what you love. So I
And
was...
if you're doing what you love, it refers back then to your list about one of those criteria or values is, you know, following your passions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Follow your
having
passion.
a fire in your belly.
And exactly.
Absolutely.
There was a, geez, I wish I could remember his name, but there was an actor, Johnny Carson asked him one night if he was, why he's always so active, and he just looked at Johnny and said, life isn't a dress rehearsal.
It's true.
I wish I could remember his name,
Yeah.
but the point is what matters.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know, I wanted to talk to you about another thing you discuss in your memoir. You used the phrase blue-collar entrepreneur earlier, and you're very upfront in your book about there being what you refer to as 2 tiers in the path to entrepreneurship. There's one for those with pre-existing connections and resources, often by nature of family, wealth and networks. And there's a different path and different kinds of challenges for people who are venturing out, as you did, without those connections. So I was hoping you could talk a bit about these 2 tiers and what people venturing out on their own need to be prepared for.
Okay. Well, essentially, my working title for the book for years was blue-collar entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I changed that because the connotation is, when people think blue-collar, they think plumber, electrician, whatever. But it's really a working-class environment. I was raised in a working-class family. The thought of owning your own business and so forth was somewhat remote. Fortunately, I had an uncle that did own his own business, and he used to come to visit, and just looking at this man, I remember 6 years old, and he had his foot up on a stool. My grandmother was fixing one of his shirts for him, and he had these gorgeous black alligator shoes. I just remember, wow, be like him someday. That would be something. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So the blue-collar entrepreneur, this is the person that, starts a store, a restaurant, is a beautician, is typically a working person that goes out into business for themselves, and they don't have any plan B. They have to make it. I've had clients like that, oh my goodness, they lost their job for whatever reason. They had to pick up a machine and start their own company, and they got one of their customers to help finance the machine, and today they've got 100 machines. So oftentimes it'll start in this kind of a way, whereas the white-collar entrepreneur, that's the person that went to Stanford, went to MIT, Babson, came time to start a business. They raised several $1 million and took a $200,000 a year salary, and they start the business. And if it fails, they just do it again. Yeah. Whereas the blue-collar entrepreneur doesn't have a plan B. You have to make it work. You're like a prize fight. You get into the ring. If you get knocked down, you get up. And you get knocked down again, you wipe the blood off, you get up. Yeah. You have to make it happen, and that's the exciting thing of it. I often think of it as, in my mind, when I started the business, I made a game out of it because games are fun. And I always thought of how exciting it would be to Kurt Schilling pitch the World Series. Well, that's what it was like building my business. Every day it was like the World Series. You start with zero. I started with $300. Yeah. I spent $125 on a logo, business card, and letterhead. I hired a salesman, straight commission, and I was a writer, and I didn't even own a typewriter. So I took my first check for $395, that sale. I went and I bought a typewriter for $300, and I was in business.
You were.
And people can still work that way today, especially with technology the way it is. But it was just so exciting to start and build a business and build a client base and be working with people all these years. It's a great gift.
And to know every step of the way, I made this happen. Yes. I made this happen.
Good and bad. Absolutely. I own it.
Yeah,
that's
right. That's right.
So.
A lot of pride, I imagine.
Tremendous amount of pride.
And satisfaction.
Right, exactly. And interestingly enough, that was one of the things that, I was too busy building the business and serving my clients these 46 years to really think a lot about that. But when I sat down to write the book, which a good friend of mine's written a few books, and she told me, just write a chapter at a time. She was very encouraging and said, send it to me. So I wrote a chapter and sent it. We did this for 22 chapters. But what the book gave me was a sense of what I had achieved. And I am very proud of what I've achieved in terms of transforming the business to suit what I wanted to do and what I enjoyed. In the beginning, the business took off, and we had 2,000 accounts within 3 years, and I had 12 full-time people, and didn't fulfill me. Didn't make me happy. What made me happy was transforming the business into more of a practice that allowed me to use my skills with people. So I had an epiphany one day. It was in Gloucester. I went away for a weekend. I write about this in the book. And I sat there in a window overlooking the ocean at an inn, and I had a cigar, and I had a bottle of Merlot, pad of paper, and a pen. And it occurred to me I had created this monster. I can also undo it and transform it into something that I enjoyed. And that's what I did, and it's worked out very well. And interestingly enough, every time I would go to my wife, who has been my savior, I would go to her and I said, Peg, I'm going to have to, I've got to make the business a little bit smaller to be happier, and we might have to take less money. And she said, I don't care about the money, I just want you to be happy.
Aww. Wow.
Every time I made a change for my personal fulfillment, I ended up making more money as a byproduct.
Well, that is really interesting.
Incredible unintended consequence. When I didn't care, that's really when it started to happen for me. It was incredible. So, again, that's the stuff I write about in the book, and hope that it can inform and inspire people and entertain them. I've had a couple of old clients, actually several old clients, get in touch with me, and one wrote me recently and said, "Hey, your book's a masterpiece." Now, this is from a guy who's 77 years old. He's built and sold several companies, and he enjoyed reading it. So it's a book that's enjoyable.
Well, yeah.
For whether you're 16, 17, 18 years old, right on up through. So
Yeah, that's a real testimonial from someone like that.
that was interesting thing. You talk about testimonials. The best ones for the book, the best reviews I get, the ones that mean the most to me, are from people I don't know, because they don't. They're my friends. They're going to tell me it's nice whether they liked it or not.
Right.
But a total stranger from Arizona somewhere that says, "Wow, this is fantastic." It's incredible.
Right. You know that they're responding to the
It's
book.
funny, comedians are the same, entertainers are the same way. They know, they go up on the stage and they tell jokes, and they know their friends are going to laugh. But when they get the strangers to laugh, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So when I get reviews, from around the country from people I don't know and have never met, it feels great.
You've accomplished your goal, and
And again, this book, I put my guts out on the line.
You did.
So I didn't know whether people would say, "Well, he's a fool," or "Thank you, it's meaningful." So fortunately, it's,
I'm going to guess you're getting the thank yous.
yeah, fortunately.
Well,
And I could be a fool too. But.
No. Steve, for me, one of the most compelling aspects of your personal story is you had a very strong drive as a young man to succeed and to see yourself as a winner, and you're clearly have always been very hardworking and very capable, but over time, as you tell the story in your book, you discover that success by external measures such as earnings is not necessarily a buffer against depression and dissatisfaction if the goalposts that you've placed for yourself aren't authentic expressions of what really matters most deeply to you. And this is where I see your memoir making a real contribution by nature of your honesty about the role that therapy played in helping you understand the drivers, especially the familiar ones, of how you initially defined success, which was not necessarily the same as the happiness or fulfillment that you were just talking about. So I was hoping that you could talk to us about this part of your journey and how your path to greater self-understanding has led you to define success today.
Well, it's interesting. I wish I could say it was all wonderful positive reinforcement, but the reality is not quite like that. And there were a couple of events that impacted my drive. One was in 1966, in the middle of the Vietnam War, I quit college. I was 3 months into college, and I quit, and it was the dumbest thing I could have done. I knew it as I was going through it. It was a youthful experience, and it had taken on a life of its own. My friends were throwing me a party, my classmates, blah, blah, blah. I was assured I could come back to school after my time in the service. So I quit in the middle of the Vietnam War and enlisted in the Air Force. And this was, so I went, and it was a very low point because, as I said, I knew it was a mistake. So I went to my dad and I said, "Dad, I've quit college and I've enlisted in the Air Force." And he looked at me and he said, "You're stupid, just like your brothers, and you're a quitter." Now, I thanked him over the as I matured, I thanked him for that because he was right. I did quit, and it was a stupid decision. And so that ended up being a motivator. And so I became driven not to be a quitter and not to be stupid. And so I worked extra hard as a result of that. So that was a motivator. Another life experience took place when I was 11 years old. There was a fight in our family. My father and my older brother got into fisticuffs. He was about 17, 18 at the time. I was 11. And it was a brutal, brutal battle. And my mother grabbed a hold of me, and it was just a combination of screaming and talking, "Don't ever do anything to hurt me." Now, I was 11 years old, so this is quite an injunction.
Yeah.
So not coincidentally, she was a school teacher. My first year of college, I was a teacher. I transferred into business during the summer as I began to mature. But for many, many years as a youngster, the filter was my mother. Would this make her happy? Would this displease her? And it was so she always wanted me to be a businessman and was always threatened by my artistic expression. I was the class artist in 4th and 5th grade. My mother was afraid I would become some kind of a bum, you know. So this is what I ultimately had to relearn and reprogram because I was hardwired to please my mother.
Yeah.
And then involved in therapy, I learned that she was very unhappy when I was 2 and 3 years old, and she used to play with me on the bed. My role was to make her happy.
Yeah.
Well, as you well know, for a 2 or 3 year old, that's so.
Yeah.
That became the role that I had to relearn. So that I was hardwired that way, and I had to reprogram myself. And that's when I realized that all the art that I was doing and all the creative work I was doing and the writing I was doing is really what was most fulfilling. And this book has been the most fulfilling experience of all. The collaboration I had last year with my editor for my book, which I'm shamelessly promoting, the work I did with her was some of the most creative work I've ever done in my life. It was very exciting to be going through, experiencing that at 74 years old.
Yeah.
That was last year.
Well, you know, Steve, in my experience, it takes courage to probe those earlier life stories and those influences. It takes grit and gumption to be willing to revisit fundamental truths about how you were raised and the impact that it had on you. People, in my experience, often are fearful they'll be seen as blaming their families, and it's not about that. It's about being honest with yourself, so that you can build a life that is truly the best possible fit for yourself.
Absolutely.
So I give you lots of credit for your honesty and your courage undertaking that journey to understand and unpack those experiences, and then to repack your life in a way that's truly more gratifying for you. And then it takes an extra level of courage to tell the story and share it bravely with others so that they can benefit from the example of the benefits you gain from being courageous about telling the truth to yourself, about the impact that these early experiences had on you. So I give you great credit to that, and I'm confident, I'm sure, that is one of the great gifts that your memoir will have for people who read it.
Thank you. It was quite an experience. As I said, one of the reasons I didn't write it for 40 years and resisted writing it was going back there was a very painful experience.
Yeah, of course.
And I was fortunate. I had a terrific therapist, a fellow named Laurie Rhines. He was marvelous, and helped me grow and understand what motivated me. And as you well know, that whole process of learning and therapy is like peeling an onion. Every time you or opening and closing doors, every time you open one, something else opens up. And it was just wonderful and empowering to have that experience and be able to transform my business to better suit who I was as a person. And it's again, I share that in the book because I wanted to get it out. And I wanted to help other people see that, we all come from flawed families in one respect or another.
Absolutely.
And I want to make it clear, I had wonderful conversations with my folks, and they passed with absolutely no unfinished business. And, it's all laid out in the book to help other people who realize, gee, they, for some reason, they think, I can't become an entrepreneur, I can't become self-employed, I can't do this because I had that or this or the other thing. And if somebody's angry, I want them to know, if they're angry at their parents, look at themselves, because it's really yourself that you're angry at.
That's right.
Whatever you assimilate, whatever character trait you assimilated from your parents. I share an experience in the book when I first went in the Air Force. My dad, growing up, he had two lives. He was first half of our life, he was extremely authoritarian. The last half, he was very egalitarian. It was wonderful. But that first half, when I went in the Air Force and I became a squad leader and I wanted to, I was a little too authoritarian. One night I got a call that said, the sergeant wants to see you. So I said, okay. I get to the knock on the door. I said, Airman Stroum, and he says, enter. I enter, and the guys threw a blanket over me, a military blanket, the rough blanket over me, and whacked me with boots, beat me up good. And one guy put his arm under the blanket, and I bit it, and I tasted his blood, and he yelled and stopped the massacre. but I deserved the massacre, and I learned a great deal from it. And my last 3 or 4 weeks in basic training was wonderful. It was life altering. But that's how you learn. You take a couple of hits. So again, that's part of the growth experience. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
Fortunately, I ended up reasonably whole human being.
Still going strong.
Still going strong. Still kicking.
And making a real contribution. Well,
Mary.
Steve, is there anything that I haven't asked you about entrepreneurship or your life story, or about what you hope readers will take away from your book that you want to be sure and be able to talk about today before we end?
Yeah. Well, I want readers to know a few things. I think I've been told it's a very engaging story. Quick read, 300 pages. But more than being entertaining, it's informative. As I said, I explain what selling is, what interaction is. I talk about open-ended questions being designed to gather information, closed-ended questions, yes, that can be answered yes or no, designed to get affirmation, and how you build a sales presentation, and how you set appointments up and create an environment for yourself to win. And so that's in the book. So there's some real good information. There's great marketing information on how to publicize and promote your business. So not only do I hope the book will inspire somebody to go into business for themselves, because I think it's the only thing to do. I mean, it's just the happiest place. I've had guys come to me and say, geez, well, I've only got 10 more years in this job and I can retire. And I look at them and say, 10 more years of not enjoying what you do.
Yeah.
Life isn't a dress rehearsal.
Right.
So I'm hoping they get inspired, informed, and have a greater appreciation for entrepreneurship. One of the things that disappointed me, November is National Entrepreneur Month. Did you know that?
I did not know that,
Yeah,
but I do now.
most people don't. Okay, and to me, America's about entrepreneurship. That's the competition at a macro level is what's created our institution, is what's created our leadership in the world with iPhones and with Amazon and with the wonderful things that go on. So we don't want to lose that. Keep cooperation at the micro level, keep competition at the macro level. And that's what's made America great. That's what entrepreneurship is about. That's what I'm hoping my book helps people do.
Well, that is really well put. Well, Steve, thank you so much for the book. And also for visiting the morning show today to share with us your many insights and your amazing stories. I really appreciate it.
Mary, it was my pleasure. I can't believe how fast the time went.
It has gone by fast, hasn't it? Thank you so much, Steve. Oh,
Thank
and
you.
before we end, would you like to give the URL for your website?
It's the book is available on Amazon, and that's that 11-year-old kid I was telling you about. And and my website is smstroum, STROUM .com. Yeah.
All right.
www.smstroum.com.
All right.
Or
Very good.
Amazon.com.
Thank you so much, Steve. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
Mary.
it.
My pleasure.
That's it for today, everybody. Please join us again next Thursday at 9 for the morning show. Until then, be well. Think about becoming an entrepreneur if it's the good fit for you.